everybody. Welcome to the InPsight Show. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Hi, guys. How have you been? I hope everybody is doing well this month. I've been really busy. It's been wonderful, but just coming up and getting all the things done and preparing for big summer events and all kinds of stuff. And guys, I'm so excited about our podcast today that I am going to just jump right into our topic. Okay? We have like zero set up because I have so much to cover that I'm worried if I don't get on it that an hour isn't going to cut it today. So, I've been getting tons and tons of emails and texts and inboxed through Facebook or other social means messages from a lot of you really just struggling with the idea that there is something else besides, us out there in the universe right now. I mean, we're looking at some pretty crazy stuff politically. We're looking at all kinds of things that are going to happen more politically. Just, we got other craziness coming down the pike, and we've got all kinds of things that are going to rock people's belief systems. I mean, lots and lots of things. So when we're talking about chronic destabilization, and that's really been a theme in the United States, which has been chronic destabilization. When you're looking at chronic destabilization, it becomes very difficult to try to figure out where your personal litmus is in all of that. And I know that, especially the very first part of this year has been a little challenging for some folks. We're going to get into some socioeconomically tight spaces as we get further on into the year, as we get out into the middle of the summer. We're going to be seeing news headlines that reflect a great deal more about some struggles we're having economically in the country. And we're going to see it show up in our entertainment sector. That's where we're going to see it show up. And normally, you guys, we don't really have too much that shows up in entertainment. That's kind of the last place where we see an economic downturn, bars and concerts and stuff like that. We're going to start to see it, though, because, you can't pay bills with no money, right? So, unfortunately, this is all coming in. But it's part of this destabilization perception that we have in our nation right now in America, in the United States. I mean, America is also North America and South America. It's not just the United States. So in the United States, we have a perception of destabilization, and it's been quite a theme. So that's what the podcast is about today. It is the perception of destabilization, real or false. Okay. Now, this gets hard because, as we know in spiritual physics, it's not a zero-sum total game oftentimes. However, one thing that I'm noticing categorically is that really, since 2014, you guys, we have had, since the beginning of time, the United States has been having outside influences try to destabilize us since the beginning of the United States' clock. Okay, that's what I mean by time. However, most recently in our history, we've had internal destabilization efforts made by other nations. And, Russia's one of them. And we have some other nations that kind of silently back up behind Russia to try to get in here and cause disinformation so that we destabilize ourselves in the USA. And we all know the election interference stories, and we all know in 2014, guys, Barack Obama and his administration were going on and on and on and on, you guys, about the fact that we needed to not be taking for granted the fact that Russia was going to affect our infrastructure in terms of not only voting machine software. Go back and look all this up, you guys. In 2014, Barack Obama's administration was like, guys, Russia, I got intelligence. Russia's trying to noodle with our elections. And I think that when we had a black man elected president, a country like Russia isn't stupid, right? And Putin just loves to play chess. And that's not, I'm not trying to be categorically just stereotypical with the Russian playing chess. However, Putin loves to play chess, and he's a very, very brilliant man, guys. I mean, he ran the KGB. He's a very smart human being, and he loves the long game, man. So one of his chess games with the United States since, forever, but since the 80s, actually, we've had active amazing. And I say amazing not because I think having Russian spies in America trying to destabilize our country is amazing. I think it's amazing that there has been this much focus on the United States from Russia for this long, trying to destabilize us, having Russian actors, as they call them, they're spies, plants in the United States, acting like American families, doing all kinds of destabilizing things. There was even a big miniseries, I believe it was, or a TV series, I believe it was Netflix, it was called The Americans, and it was all about Russian spies in the 80s. So this has been going on for a minute, okay? However, the active, really brazen destabilization attempts at our elections came in 2014 when Barack Obama's administration came out and said, guys, Russia is going to try and noodle with our elections with both disinformation and hacking voting machines. And nobody really, that news really never made news back then. We still in 2014, we were in a happy place in the United States. We didn't want to believe that anything could happen in our nation that would compromise our election integrity. We didn't want to believe that. So we just kind of blew it off, man. I mean, I'm sure our intelligence communities didn't, but our news cycles sure did. I read a little about it or something, and I figured, they'll handle it with the CIA. They'll handle it with the Department of Defense. Well, then comes 2016. And the mystery of the exit polls, when people said, who did you vote for, Hillary or Trump? The mystery of Hillary pulling out those exit polls and the exact 2% margin win that Trump had in those same exact states. It was like Iowa, Ohio, Florida. There was this weird 2% margin where Trump won those states that did not reflect the exit polls. Now, people might have lied about who they voted for. They might have been embarrassed to say they voted for Donald Trump, so they said they voted for Hillary. But how would that maintain an exact 2% margin over the exit polls, which is basically a 4% margin because Hillary wasn't winning by a landslide in any of those states? So how would it be exactly 2%? How would Trump win exactly by 2% in these states where the exit polls were all reflecting Hillary? Maybe 1%, maybe 5%, but it's weird. It's weird, you guys, that there was an exact 2% margin that Trump won by over the exit polls in certain key states. Now, what's also weird in 2016 is if you go back, and you can Google all of this if it's still up in the news cycle somewhere, that in Florida, people were leaving the polling places complaining to the pollsters that when they went on their electronic ballot and selected Hillary and selected their down ballot Democrats and blah, that when it went to confirm their ballot and they hit go, or enter their ballot, right as they hit enter, the screen flickered for a second. And for just a nanosecond, they saw their selection switch from Hillary to Trump. So they reported this in these same states that had Trump winning by 2%. And I believe it was Florida was one of them. I think Ohio and Iowa were the other two. And it didn't really make that much news at the time because, of course, this was weird. It was kind of a weird thing. So nobody really thought much about it. Maybe it was just a glitch at the end. And I remember this being on the nightly news. There were news interviews. I watched them on television, you guys. News interviews with people who were saying, yeah, I cast a vote for Hillary. And then the screen flickered for a second. And right after I clicked accept my ballot, it flickered and it looked like I had voted for Trump. And then it said, thank you, your ballot was accepted. And I went and complained about it. And the polling people didn't really have an answer for me. They said, okay, well, we'll keep an eye on it. Other people, some people are complaining of this, some aren't. So you guys, that's a little weird because apparently there has not been a similar voting hiccup like that with these voting machines in those key swing states since the 2016 election. But in those three states, Trump won by 2%. So And now let's speed all the way up to 2024. And let's go to the Donald Trump saga, okay? And I just can't wait for this election cycle to be over, you guys. It is just so much. But anyway, and there's more to it to come. And, just wait till people start voting for a convicted felon. That's going to be great. So, what we've got here is we've got a situation where the Trump campaign, from the Stop the Steal thing from way back in 2020, from January 6th, was claiming that there was something that happened with the Dominion voting machines. Do you remember that? And they were claiming that the Dominion voting machines were changing the vote from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. And of course, Dominion, sued and won and all those things. However, they were reporting this on Fox News, and this was coming from the Trump campaign. So I want you to think about this a minute. Every single thing that Donald Trump has bellyached about, all the injustices, the stolen election, the this, the that, this is all stuff that went down in 2016 around his campaign. The voting machines being sketchy, I watched it. I watched it on the news, you guys. It happened in 2016. So all of this weirdness that happened here, all of it has happened to aid Trump. So everything Trump is saying happened. I was cheated. He knew that there were voting machines. I don't know how Russia did it, you guys. And I'm sure it was Russia because, they or China are really the only countries with that much dedicated long game chess intention to mess up the United States elections. But I think even China would probably stay out of that. They're not. We buy so much gross domestic product from China. I don't really think that's a fight they want to get into. Do you know what I'm saying? I think China is just kind of doing China's thing and looks at the United States and wants what we have, but they're not really willing to pick that kind of a fight with our democracy over here. Russia, on the other hand, is a country that's up in flames with this war that they're losing with Ukraine and the rest of the world that's secretly backing Ukraine. And so they're a little more desperado, okay, come 2020. So basically everything that Trump has accused everybody else of doing to him, he or his campaign or Russia aiding his campaign has done to others, including but not limited to the voting machine thing. Now, we never ever heard back in 2016 or 2017, we never heard any follow-up from the voting machine companies or anything about the sketchy voting machine activity. And when I look at that psychically backwards, I'm seeing that it happened to such a weird margin. Not every vote, but maybe every 5 votes or whatever. It happened to such a weird margin that one of the things that I see is that also the voting machine companies, as the United States electorate, did not want people feeling insecure about our elections. And so I think there might have been some looking into it, but I don't think there was a lot looking into it because I think it was also assumed that a lot of people just didn't like Hillary. And there was so much press at that time given to Donald Trump that I think people thought that it could have been plausible that maybe people lied, leaving the election headquarters and said they voted for Hillary when they voted for Trump, or just some polling errors could have taken place. But the fact of the matter is, you guys, an exact mathematical 2% in the same exact states that there were voting machine errors reported is pretty sketchy to me, especially when the exit polls had Hillary winning in those exact states. Now, in Florida, it was always a tight race because Florida is heavily Republican. But even at that time, Trump did not have the crazy fan base he has now. And Hillary is a pretty moderate Democrat. So it wasn't out of the scope at that time. And I remember watching a lot of news coverage about this, that she would be picking up some votes that she normally wouldn't pick up down in Florida. So the reason that I just did this little 15-minute recap here about all of this is it's about destabilization. And if you think back, guys, what is that? 8 years or whatever since 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, 8 years. And that's really when all this craziness hit. And Trump came out with this unabashed style of being super negative and bashing everybody. And it brought a voice out of the cracks in the woodwork in America that had silenced itself because just sociologically, that's not where we were at overall as a nation. Although a lot of people believe that we secretly were there as a nation, and maybe we were because look what's happened. I don't know. Point being that this destabilization issue is something that has been very prevalent. So you go 8 years down into this, and people are just really worn out at this point, you guys. People are tuckered. People have kind of had it. I mean, there really is something to be said here about the long game that Putin had initiated. Because these destabilization tactics, it takes a long time to wear down somebody. And we in the United States aren't used to that. We're used to what I like to call our Super Bowl style conflicts. There's a big event, and for a weekend we freak out, and then everybody goes back to their daily lives. We're not laboring these really difficult portions of long-term destabilization. That's just usually not what we do here. And so it's been new for us. And the thing about destabilization, you guys, is it is somewhat of a perception. Now, not in the sense economically, not in looking around and seeing this cray stuff happening in the country right now. However, if you think about it, the whole destabilization and disinformation, I guess, campaign that was launched by Russia and maybe a few other secret countries backing them up there is psychological. I mean, Russia is phenomenal with the psychological oppression of people. They're really good at it. So this has been a slow drip of psychological distrust that's been coming through really for a long time. And Russia knew that as soon as a black man was elected, they were going to capitalize on our racism and our white Christian American nationalism and America. I mean, they're not stupid. They know what's going on over here. They know where our own weak kinks are, and all they did was exploit the weak kinks. Okay? So if we look at it, are we really destabilized as a nation? Are we really? No. No. Everyday life in America is the same, except we've been gone through a really horrible corporate greed period that the economists like to call inflation. It was inflation shortly after COVID. It is now just a wall of corporate greed, and we're all still stewing in it in 2024. And this is just a greed. It's a price grab. It's a money grab, and it's happening across the board all over the place, and it's affecting everything. So that economically can be a little destabilizing to people, you guys. But is the United States destabilized? No, it is not. It is not. What it is people think it's destabilized, so it's continuing to destabilize us. People think that Trump is going to win another election, so that's got them shutting down, thinking about, oh God, well, look what happened last time. What a crap show that all was. You guys, we are destabilizing ourselves psychologically. That's exactly what Russia wanted to happen all these years later. That's the way this is played out. Are we actually destabilized in the United States of America? The answer is no. Our economy is a little out of control with the greed. And, I love our blame game in America. Our sit in the lazy boy chair and bitch about everybody besides us because it's everybody else besides us that's the problem. And that's human nature, for one thing, but it's really an American thing. It's your fault. It's not my fault. I'm pious. I'm going to sit here and drink my beer. I don't know what you're talking about. That is a human thing all over the world. Yet we're really bad with that in the United States. And the blame game doesn't get us anywhere. The fact of the matter is, folks want to say it's Bidenomics or it's this or it's that. And all these bumper stickers that we in America don't even spend prefrontal cortex time debunking because we are so overwhelmed and overstimulated in this country that we can't slow down long enough to say that's a bunch of crap. This is stupid. Let's look at the party that Trump had on the American nickel and how that got shoved over to the taxpayers. But no, we're not going to look at that because everybody had money in their bank account from COVID, you know? So it's insane. We have such a nonsensical view of the world in the United States at this point. We sit there and we rail against wars other places, and we won't even handle the own injustice in our country. It makes me nuts. Now, I'm not saying don't protest a war that you don't agree with. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I would really love all of this energy that we're putting in to protesting, Ukraine or the war in Israel with Hamas and Gaza, the Palestinian-Israeli war, which is going to just keep getting gnarly. I would love us to have this much passion about the injustice in our own country rather than, rising to the occasion to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to use my privilege in this country to fight for others or protest something that I have no control over. The United States has no control over what happens in Israel. And I mean, unless they were to completely take all their money away from Israel, which they're not going to do. I mean, you guys, I'm not saying don't be passionate. I stand with Ukraine. Okay. I do. I have family members who are through marriage, who are Palestinian, who have had half their family wiped out. They're no longer even there. And so it's a horrible, horrible problem. I have Israeli friends whose family members were killed and wiped out. So it's a horrible problem all the way around. And, I'm not saying don't have your passionate places to put your heart. I'm saying we got enough to worry about here too. So I would love to see some passionate protests about the corporate greed in this country. I would love to see some passionate protests about the continued racial inequality in this country. I would love to see some extremely passionate protests about women's health care choices in this country. But that's not where the focus goes, because that's not what we do in the United States. We look outside of ourselves because sometimes it's a little too terrifying to look at the absolute, what appears to be a collapsing tower in our own backyard. And again, you guys, I don't want to get hate mail with people going, I can't believe you don't think that Israel and Hamas and Gaza is important. Of course, I think it's important. Do not just listen with one ear. Do not listen with one ear to what I'm saying. Okay? I'm saying that where is the passion for our own dysfunction and fixing it? It's in that lazy boy chair pointing across the room going, oh, it's their fault. It's your fault. I can't look in the mirror. I can't look at my own health problems. Because I'm sitting here eating a bag of chips and drinking 16 beers a day. I can't look at my own self. I have to look at that person's problem over there. That's easier. I'll feel like I'm doing something good if I do that. How about we do it all? Well, we can't do it all. We're too tired. So the perception of destabilization gets larger and larger because there are other boiling points in the world. Is the United States destabilized? No. No, you guys. And I swear to God, we are addicted to being hysterical in this country. We're just addicted to it. It's weird. The older I get, man, I'm 55 years old now. The older I get, the less this hysterical drama has any interest to me whatsoever. And energetically and psychically, I look around and none of it means anything. All of this endocrine damage we're doing to our systems, worrying and freaking out and blowing out our adrenals. That's part of Russia's plan, you guys, is to wear you down to the point where you just don't give one flat shit about any of it. That's the point. That's the point of a long game destabilization campaign. But the only way we can be destabilized in America, guys, is if we believe that we are, and we are not. Now, we have some factions of Americans that have dug in and are acting like wackos. Okay, guess what? Those factions of Americans always existed, folks. They've existed since the Civil War. They existed since the Civil War. Previous to the Civil War, the Republican known as Abraham Lincoln was trying to ferret out of the United States government at the time wealthy, democratic landowners from the South who owned Senate seats, who bought votes. At the time, the Democratic Party was all about the big business and the commerce. And back in the day, the Republican Party was about the republic. It was about the grassroots. It's that, the parties have sort of switched places at this point. Well, the parties are kind of exactly the same if you look at them in a stat sheet on their funding opportunities and what they do. But ideologically on paper, the parties, the Republican Party says it's for the little guy, yet it backs all of the big corporate decisions. And the Democratic Party says it's for the little guy and generally is for the little guy and is trying to uphold, things like planetary and environmental law and things like that, which can interfere with the big business. So the irony is the parties kind of switch places over the years. And at this point, there's just terrible corruption in both of them. However, guys, what Russia wants us to do is boil this very complicated democracy with over 300 million people in it down to a very black and white pat bumper sticker answer. That's what destabilization is. And we've got to stay out of that trap, you guys. Okay? If you have a neighbor that flies a Trump flag and you think that guy's the creepiest creep in the world, you make an effort to be friendly with your neighbor. It's so funny. I have a Trump supporter. I have many Trump supporter friends who don't actually believe that he is guilty of any of these indictments. They don't believe he's guilty of these crimes. They believe it's all a show. And I asked him, guys, how can you believe? I'm just curious. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just asking you a legit question. How can you believe someone who's been indicted 91 times or 92 or 90 million, however many, how can you believe that that person is innocent? And I'm not here to change your mind. I just would like to see your perception here. And you know what unanimously all these folks said? There is no way, they all unanimously said, there is no way one person could be guilty of 91 crimes. And it's obviously a witch hunt because there's no way somebody could be that guilty. Like, they don't believe one human being could be that rotten, just lawfully. And so what you've got is, these people are not dyed-in-the-wool racists. These people are not people who believe that the United States should be turned over to Christian nationalists. They just believe that they don't want to pay too many taxes and that small businesses should be left alone, which cracks me up because I keep trying to explain to them they're voting for the party that does not back small business, but they don't believe me. And they believe that there's no way somebody could be this guilty. They have these sweet, trusting hearts that they're just like, no way can somebody be this guilty. And I'm like, you guys, but what if this person is that guilty? What if there is a person who's that guilty? And it's incomprehensible to them that one human being would break that many laws because they are God and country and law-abiding people, and that's not part of their reality. So when we talk about destabilization, you guys, destabilization is a perception. And the fact of the matter is, we only are as destabilized in the United States as we allow ourselves to be. And, when you look at the polling science across the board of destabilization, it gets pretty crazy. And over time, as more of these QAnon narratives have become adopted by many as just a gospel truth. And you guys, the original QAnon people were Russian. I keep picturing, I know I keep saying this on these podcasts, but I keep picturing like this garage in Nebraska, right? With these Russian plant operatives who have the best mid-American accent that's possible out there. And they're just sitting there in their garage eating pizza and drinking vodka and making up stupid ass conspiracy theories online and laughing as all it gets liked and shared. And they're just dying laughing. I think they probably think it's the funniest thing ever. It's probably just a game. How many people can we believe that, a child porn ring is run out of a pizza parlor basement? I mean, QAnon, the seeds of QAnon, guys, were originally Russian disinformationists. So now we have all these Americans that want to believe a narrative that backs up their own feelings of economic and social destabilization. So they glom onto this weirdo stuff. That's what's going on. They feel destabilized in their head already. They don't like gay people getting married. They don't understand trans issues. They don't get why abortions are necessary. The world they live in is very different than the world I live in. And the difference between, say, me living in my world and they living in their world, not to make an us against them, but I don't have another pronoun there, guys, so I'm kind of stuck. The difference is, if they wish to believe it's all going to hell in a handbasket, that's okay with me. If they want to live in a personal hell. The difference is they believe that their reality needs to be everybody's reality. And that in order for them to feel stabilized, everything else around them needs to be exactly as they believe it should be, which means controlling a lot of choices for others. Now, think about how destabilized you must feel in your own head. We're gonna do an empathy experiment here, because I've had it with everybody's hatred for each other. I'm over it. If you really just want to keep hating people, you need to unsubscribe from my podcast, because I am not going there. I think it's ridiculous. I am just as much of a chess player as Vlad Putin, so move over, buddy. I gotcha. I know your game. I gotcha. And the fact of the matter is, in the United States, if we adjust our perception and we understand that these folks who want, no control for women, no control for gays, no control for trans people, no control for lesbians, no control for any of it, they feel so out of control in their own head, they can't even see straight. The idea of the United States of America that was sold to them was kind of never really real in the first place, you guys. So these folks are having a colossal meltdown in belief. I mean, for those that don't subscribe to deeply, deeply conservative ideals, imagine if Handmaid's Tale became real. How would you feel? You would feel like your entire world ended. That's how these folks have been feeling since Roe v. Wade. That's how they've been feeling since the Civil Rights Act. That's how they've been feeling since women have gotten their own ability to have a checking account and credit cards. That's how they've been feeling since Barack Obama, God bless you, and that entire Congress said, hey, gay people can be legally married on a federal level. That's how they've been feeling. Now, I understand there's a lot of you hearing that going, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. Screw them. Why? That's their problem. They need to grow up. They need to evolve. Well, guess what? That doesn't really help our empathy experience, okay? Because we can't understand where people are coming from in their own mental destabilization as the world changes around them if we don't understand how they got there. We can't calmly speak to people who are in such a hippocampus-triggered state of brain trauma chronically, and that's what's happening. I mean, the destabilization campaigns from Russia are like a machine gun on the hippocampus. It just jumps up and down on that fight or flight or fear center of the brain over and over with catastrophic headlines. And it wears people down. It blacks you out. It puts you in a fugue state, And so this is working across the board for many people, but not a majority of people. Do you know how many people have gotten off social media, you guys? Tons. Do you know how many people on Facebook just really aren't checking in like they used to? And Facebook's got all these mechanisms. Facebook is even paying you now to post a lot of stuff. It's a true story. You know how I know that? Because I got this weird payment from Facebook for like $17 or something for me making a significant amount of posts. And I mostly post about work and my thoughts. And, honestly, you guys, if I didn't do this job, there's no way in hell I would be on social media nearly as much as I am. It is this job that has me on social media. That's it. I'd be texting my friends. I'm a Gen Xer. I don't want everybody knowing what I'm doing all the time. I love you guys. But I mean, come on. I'm sure you don't want me knowing what you're doing all the time either, right? There's like a life privacy. But the things I do want to share, I enjoy sharing. However, if it were not for my work and the messaging that I feel I'm asked to put out there by the universe. I wouldn't be on social media like this. So we see people stepping off of this perception of destabilization by not participating in the din. And people are going back to their communities and they're going back to their real life, you guys. And they're settling into their communities and they're like, oh my God, this has gotten really nuts. What am I doing? And this is super duper important that people are able to do this. So when you ask yourself, are we really destabilized as a country? We are seeing the fear factor in many who have felt destabilized since 1963 and have continued to pass that edict of destabilization down to their families and congregations. That's what we're looking at right now. And Russia knows this has all been going on because they've had agitators in the Christian sector since the 60s. You guys, hello? Don't you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? I mean, Russia has been trying to rock us from the inside, so we'd be too busy scrambling to deal with our own destabilization internally so that we couldn't really police the world in the way that we do. Now, even Russia's best attempts at doing this, even January 6th, didn't destabilize our nation. It was shocking. It was terrible. And people are going to prison for it now, even though there's so many people that want to use the word patriot for the people who stormed that Capitol building. And you guys, the folks who believe those are patriots, you are never going to change their mind because they are so into their own narrative. There's no changing that. But it's not even about changing people's minds. It's about changing our own perception, you guys. Just because there are people with differing opinions around us, and there always has been, guys, there's been a lot of folks who just haven't said anything because it was just not socially acceptable to say some of the things that are being said right now. And oh my goodness, I kind of wish we could go back to those times, but we're not going backwards. We're going forwards. So guys, is the United States destabilized? No. You know, our government has been doing some really positive financial things that are not making the news cycles because those histrionic headlines make ad revenue every time they are clicked. So there are even some I would even call them fairly reasonable or respectable magazines out there, you guys, that I am seeing are the worst, and I do mean the worst, rotten, stupid clickbait headlines. And it's not even political stuff. I mean, I'm talking science periodicals that I read. I read a lot of science periodicals online. And one of them, which is, and I'm not going to say its name. I don't want to shame it. It is a popular science. It's not popular science, but it's a popular science periodical that has a lot of vetted material in it generally. Okay. Even that one has taken to start posting these weird articles that Google picks up that are things like, comet the size of Rhode Island may smash into the earth. And then the minute you open up the article, it's like, well, it could in like 1 billion years when its orbit changes, right? Or these other science articles that say things like the Earth's core has stopped rotating in a certain way or is slowing down and this could be catastrophic. Well, then you get in and you read and it's like, well, we don't really know. This is the first time we've really been able to maybe detect the Earth's core swinging around. So maybe this constantly happens. I mean, it could be catastrophic, but probably not because we don't really know if it's happened before or not because now we just developed the technology that tracks it. I mean, even our popular science and vetted science magazines, you guys, are garbage headlines. And you have no idea how this pains me. I'm a science person, guys, and I know that I don't seem like I am. I know I seem like a big metaphysically give the world a hug lady, and I really am. I really believe that. The love particle is the most prominent particle of any particle. It crosses dimensions. It crosses ethers. It crosses wavelength density. I mean, the love particle is intense. Okay, so yes, I am all about love, yet I'm also about my science. It's a cookbook for the universe. It's a cookbook for our third dimension and beyond. I think it's so fascinating. And one of the things that science is really big on, or used to be big on, is not misleading people. It's an empirical data discipline. You can have a theory, But until you've run a significant amount of, I don't know, experiments on the theory, it's just a theory. The theory of relativity was the theory and still is a theory to a great degree. We know there are parts of relativity that work. Einstein's theory of relativity equals mc squared. We know parts of that work. There are other parts of that we don't even have the ability to actually test. So it remains a theory, and thank God, Einstein was a genius person, and whatever other planet he surfed in from to help out, he and Tesla and everybody else. However, his command of everything, of science, of higher thinking, of imagination, of mathematics, which differs from arithmetic, by the way, everybody, all of that comes down to the fact that is different because he was still trying to execute different, if you want to call it experiments, in order to prove relativity. And the atomic bomb was part of that proof, but there's other parts of it, like I said, we just don't have the science to prove. However, the point is that even our big science periodicals, some very popular ones that only printed, vetted information, are now going down this rabbit hole of the money grab. And they post these stupid clickbait articles. I mean, honestly, I probably clicked on 2 or 3 of them before I realized what was happening, and now I don't click on them anymore. I'm like, oh my God, this is stupid. I'll wait till it hits, the AP, and then I'll read about the Earth's core spinning in another direction that's going to kill us all. I mean, this is just so nonsensical. And guys, it comes down to perception. We have a greed problem in the United States. We have a world in which resources like clean water are becoming harder to find. And we're going to come into this summer. We haven't hit the hot parts of the summer yet in 2024. We're going to come into this summer where we're going to be seeing these water wars. And we're going to have lots of political pressure this summer for that headline I was seeing 2-3 years ago that said the water wars of the West in 2024. In the New York Times, there's going to be a lot of political pressure for the New York Times not to post that headline and to post other things about the water and the water problems. Because it's boiling right now, you guys. The country's going to keep boiling. It's not hot enough yet. Our summer has been pushed. So you're probably going to be noticing June, the first part of July. These are going to be balmier time frames. By the time of July, August, September are really becoming our hot months. And we're not there yet. But in coming into all of this, you are going to be seeing a big switch in perception. So is the United States destabilized? No. People, we need to get control of our heads. And I say this, my beautiful friends, with my big heart, giving you all a hug. Get control of your thoughts. Come on now. And if you can't get control of them, then make a decision to align with rational thoughts. Because sometimes we can't control our thinking. I mean, I'm not Yoda. I can't control my thinking all the time. I'm not Yoda. So if you can't control it, become a steward of your rational thought process. I know many of you out there are afraid that we're going to become this weird socialist country where there are no laws and all your money is given to homeless people. Now, I don't know where you got that idea, but there's a lot of you that are really deeply afraid of that. There are others out there that are deeply afraid that this country is going to turn into Margaret Atwood's A Handmaid's Tale. I can kind of more so see where you got those ideas. However, you guys, both of these extremes would collapse the United States of America. Let's take a rational thought at this. Okay, we're going to take a rational thought process swipe. If we become the Margaret Atwood America, where every state outlaws abortion and all gay people have their gay rights revoked and their rights revoked, there's no such thing as gay rights, they are only human rights. We have our human rights revoked. Women aren't allowed to do anything anymore. We roll back all of the equality laws and racism becomes acceptable again. Guys, if all of this happens, the United States of America will cease to be an economic superpower. because people will be fleeing this country like mad. And for the remaining people, they're sure not going to be out there buying Nikes and supporting the economy and having a great time. 100% of those resources are going to go into trying to enact social change. And indeed, if the Supreme Court actually belly flopped down that hill into this ridiculousness, even the Supreme Court knows that's going to shut us down economically because of the actual destabilized unrest. And this goes for the extreme into socialism. There is going to be no big change from democracy into socialism, you guys. And the people using these words socialism, they don't even know what it means. They really love their COVID money. That is socialism, okay? They loved it. They loved their PPP loans. Socialism, okay? But it's not really socialism, guys. It was just a bailout. That socialism is a different tenet. And quite frankly, in a lot of socialist countries, there's a lot less crime. There's a lot of things working a lot better than over here. So we're still not going to turn into a socialist country. And it's important for me to mention to any of my friends out there who may consider themselves a liberal voter, Russian disinformation works across the board. I am seeing hyper-histrionic headlines about how the Supreme Court is just going to do this and it's going to do that and blah, blah. Guys, that pokes the left's buttons pretty hard, and I'm telling you, the Russian disinformation campaign doesn't just lean in one political direction. They find the fears and the weak points in a society and they blow it up. That's what happens. Now, I'm not saying our Supreme Court hasn't made some lame choices, and I mean lame like lame duck, as in ineffective choices. That's exactly what they've done, and it's really interesting because we're going to have all sorts of stuff coming out with people investigating the Supreme Court. And, I wish I could say that some of these Supreme Court investigations would have been done in a way that wasn't as skeevy. That's the best I can put to you. I mean, we've just got some weird modalities coming up that are going to investigate the Supreme Court that will lead to other investigations that are a little more substantial. Yet the Supreme Court justices, you guys, although there are a couple of them there that are so entrenched in the good old boy system that it is dysfunctional, that is absolutely true. There are others that are just kind of trying to get their footing and work through some law issues and the histrionic stuff that's going on. I mean, Roe versus Wade was a tragedy, and I don't know what they were thinking, because that's a real problem. And hopefully they are seeing the sociological backlash of that, and states like Texas and whatnot outlawing abortion to the point where people are going to be jeopardized health-wise. And hopefully, this will make a difference in their future rulings. However, please understand, Russian disinformation and now American disinformation, who caught a big cue off the Russians, runs in all directions. I mean, look at political ads. They are ridiculous. They'll make either candidate sound like the devil in 5 minutes. It's just ridiculous. So are we destabilizing? No, we're not. We just have access to a lot more opinions. So here's what these angels suggest. Here's what I'd pass on. Don't be a pivot of destabilization. If you are feeling destabilized, unplug from the sources that make you feel destabilized until you can really feel your outside surroundings and realizing it's pretty the same. And I have some lefty friends of mine that are like, no, it's not the same. It's 1,000,000 times worse. It's never been worse than this. I'm like, yeah, it has. It was called the Civil War. It's been a lot worse than this. We used to have slavery. We used to have gay people getting beat up and hung, which still happens, unfortunately. But we used to have women not able to get a credit card. Yeah, it's been worse than this. Okay, so stop catastrophizing. That's not going to help. We must come to our spiritual center and understand that I am not destabilized. Are you destabilized? I mean, maybe you're destabilized from all the histrionic garbage you're seeing, but are you really destabilized in your life? Okay, maybe you have a few less nickels right now because a loaf of bread is $55,000, but are you truly, truly destabilized? Likely most of you are going to say, no, I'm not. then why become part of the supposed destabilization movement? Stop allowing that perception to become your perception. Is it tumultuous? Yes, it's tumultuous. Are there some fears that we have about people acting up and being crazy if Trump isn't elected? Sure. Those are fears. That's different than being destabilized, you guys. I'll tell you what destabilized is. Ukraine is destabilized. Right now, Russia is 10 seconds from being destabilized because it's about ready to go bankrupt. You know, the Israel and the Palestinian issue over there, that war, is destabilizing that region. It's not entirely destabilized yet, but it is destabilizing. So, are we destabilized over here in the United States? No. So please, I implore you to understand, to make a decision to understand that this perception is not your perception. Are there challenges? Yes, there are. Yeah. But guys, you ever go camping and you get out in the woods and you're like, God, it's great out here. You know why? Because that's reality, everybody. Okay, now I'm not saying we shouldn't be considering what the Supreme Court does or keeping a vigilant eye on our government. We should always be doing that. That is part of our democratic republic. That is our job. Our job is to participate and keep our eye on things. However, do keep in mind that this destabilization of America, man, I'm tired of greedy people. I'm tired of these headlines that want people to click those headlines. We have sold, and I mean we, corporate sociopathic America has sold out your endocrine health. It has sold out your hippocampus. It has sold out your well-being. It has sold out your mental health. It doesn't give a crap as long as it doesn't blatantly lie in its headline and it gets you to click the link. That's how they get advertisers. There are vast spins and lies being told for money, even by what were once reputable magazines and news sources. There is AI out there right now, you guys, that is parroting this formation of words to create histrionic leans towards maybe the content of an article, that are creating these articles for these periodicals at breakneck pace. All AI does is mirror trends, you guys. And the media trends is deep hysteria. So our AI in authoring media is all about hysteria. There is no destabilization of the United States. Not yet. There's gonna be if we keep buying into all this stupidity. Oh my God. There's gonna be a lot. But I am imploring you to understand that that concept is incorrect. Go out camping. Get off the internet. Go feel your neighbors. You know, I had a friend of mine who is a staunch conservative, but we call them an old school conservative here in Montana. They're not these handmade tale wackadoodle Project 2025 people. Different breed of folk. And my regular just rancher Republicans are out here and they're like, well, I have yet to see a Biden sign or a Biden flag. Biden doesn't have any support. And I said, you guys, we don't need flags to support Biden. That's called an American flag. He's the president of the United States. My Biden flag is the American flag. I already got a flag. And then my friends are like, well, you got your pride flag. How come you don't have a Biden flag? I'm like, because pride is a movement. Biden is president. That's the American flag. I don't need an extra Biden flag to show my support. I show my support in the polls. And for the most part, left-leaning voters, unless you have a really big culture-changing candidate like Barack Obama, left-leaning voters aren't usually the yard sign kind of people for their candidates. We put yard signs out for movements like, you know, love is love and here's my pride flag. We display our movement, but we cast our vote. You know, I mean, I really don't know hardly anybody with the Biden sign. And I know thousands of people. I do literally know thousands of people who are voting for Joe Biden. And I would be surprised if any of them had a t-shirt, a hat, a bumper sticker, you know, which leads me to the thought that perhaps the Trump 2024 MAGA movement, it's a movement. And their movement, just like love is love signs that I have in my window here in Montana, that movement happens to be associated with one man, which is Trump. And, the love is love movement is not associated with one person. It's associated with all people. So it's a little different, I think, in the way that perhaps those different groups or modalities view their movement. We were all behind Obama, those of us that vote on the left. I was way behind Hillary and butthurt when she got knocked out back in, 2008. But guess what? I got right behind Obama. And what a grand president he made twice. So it's important to remember, guys, that there's a difference between backing up a person, backing up a movement, and deciding the country is destabilized. So if we just stop with the hysteria and we set a new precedent to not buying into it online, that's going to be great. One of the things you can do if you want to post on social media is you can post about how all of this polarization and hysteria is not functional. Now, you're going to get some people who are so positive that this is the right thing to do, they might razz you up a little bit. Big deal. That's their opinion. We live in America. Rock on. If people want to sacrifice their hippocampus and their endocrine system to stress, you can't stop that. I can't stop that. We send those sweet people love. Okay? And that goes for my righty friends and my lefty friends. There are people losing their minds over all kinds of things. And I try to be very transparent on this podcast about the fact that I'm a left-leaning voter. It doesn't mean I hate all ideals on the right. Right now, I'm really got my eyebrows raised at this 2024 injustice stuff. That's insanity. I'm not a proponent of the Handmaid's Tale. I would love to see us be very responsible with our money and use it better instead of buying $800 million in toilet seats for the Pentagon. I would love a good budget that's solid, but there's no such thing, guys. It gets supposedly balanced and then somebody takes big chunks and that's the way it goes. So, we've got to decide on a different system. And let's be one step old Vlad. Vlad's pretty sure we're going to collapse under our own dumb American hysteria, eating our chips and our carbs and not really properly giving in the minerals to our prefrontal cortex executive center to think about how to go through things. Folks are not thinking properly about what is necessary at this time frame. They're not thinking like Vlad Putin. They're thinking like reactive Americans who have the privilege to be hysterical about something new every 5 minutes. Let's out chess game Vlad. Let's do it. The perception of destabilization is just that. So let's start posting on social media and letting our AI mirror this. I went out into my community today, and my neighbor who's flying a Trump flag, we both had a big conversation about how tired we are of the hatred. And we both fly the American flag. We are both Americans. We really want to get back to where our neighbor matters. Let's make making our neighbor matter sexy again. Let's talk about the successes we're having in healing our families. And if you're not having successes there, okay. A lot of people have fractured families over this perception of destabilization and over this need that a lot of people have had to just get in a fight with somebody to scratch an emotional and sociological and spiritual itch that exists on a level that is not physical. People are trying to make politics into the focus of their discontent. Guys, we have so much work to do spiritually, socially, and psychologically. We have so much work to do to love our planet and to love one another. And continuing to harp on this narrative of destabilization only furthers the chess moves of Mr. Putin. So stop. We're not destabilized. We're just a little uncomfortable. And there's a lot of disinformation, guys, okay? So let's place our big, beautiful hearts out there and understand this is an illusion. And I can't say it fast enough. And there are people out there that want America to fall in on itself, that are Americans, that are so privileged. They're so privileged in the world that they don't realize, yes, we are a nation of tons of problems, but we have it so good compared to other countries, guys. And we can continue to make it good. And we are not a zero-sum total country. All apples are fruit. Not all fruits are apples. And we have got to get back to the critical thinking, not the shaming culture. We have to get back to discussions. We must get back to temperance. We have got to get back to listening to one another. And this is really what a majority of Americans wants, you guys. There are a few fringy people on the right and left that don't want that because it feels like it steals their purpose. Their rage is their purpose. Their rage is their focus, and that's fine. And that might be their soul lesson. That might be their soul call. That might be their soul journey, is to be that person who, rallies through rage. And I'm not here to say that's a wrong thing. I'm saying a majority of people, as I look into the United States of America, want to be in this place of being able to come up with solutions, not just keep pointing the finger and saying, well, I'm going to restrict you this and you restrict me that. We all want the same thing. Get out of my business, get out of my bedroom, get out of my womb. Everybody wants that. It's the destabilizing elements that want to pretend that we all want it for different reasons when we all want it for the same reasons. And that may sound weird. I am pro-choice. There's people who are pro-life, as they call it. And they may not think we're all wanting the same thing, but we're all wanting the same thing. We are going about it in different ways. And unfortunately, limiting women's health care is not a good way to go about it. But if I grow up in a really, really insulated environment and I don't understand how that affects anything, I might not believe that. So compassion, we've got to lead with compassion, understanding, snap out of the perception, snap out of it. The old Cher Moonstruck. Snap out of it. Snap out of that perception that we are going downhill because we are destabilized. We are not destabilized, but we're going to be if we keep acting like numbnuts over here. So let's get our spiritual heads on. Let's get our emotional heads on. Let's understand that it is okay to be deeply passionate about what you're passionate about. It's okay to go to the political marches. It's okay to have these opinions. Yet it is not destabilizing to have an opinion. It is destabilizing to shut down and fall apart underneath of the opinion. And there's no reason to do that, guys. We got this. Spoiler alert, world authoritarianism fails overall. Yet the only way we can actually get to that timeline is for us to do the heavy lifting and elbow grease and personal work right now. And, this message isn't going to be for everybody. There's a lot of people who believe that they just need to stay in their rage pocket to have fuel. Okay, rock on. It will wear you out eventually. And untended rage that burns through its purpose becomes bitterness and fear and isolation. So just keep that in mind, guys. Is the United States destabilized? No. Could it be? Yes. Is it going to be? Unlikely, as long as we keep calm and carry on. Okay, guys. Go get some nature. Go put your foot in a creek. Go breathe some fresh air and look at the clouds. Go listen to the birdies. Go back to what's real. You're okay. You're okay. I love you. You're okay. And I'll see you next podcast.